Gonna do a tune on the stock setup before the supercharger goes on. You want to introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are?
So I'm Caleb Gordon. I own Lonestar Yota Tuning. I'm an authorized OTT Tune dealer here in I'm located in Waco. I serve Austin all the way down to Houston areas and everything in between. Just here doing a tune, the LX570. Pretty excited to see it.
We'll do some before and after numbers so you guys can see what the actual real world effect is.
I really didn't think there would be much in the way of power gain on a stock tune. I'm kind of surprised how much power there was. Real world before and after on what these tunes do and how they feel. Land Cruiser and LX570s are all tunable with the VFTuner. That's from 2008 all the way to 2021.
Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're gonna play with the LX570. If you've been following along on the channel, you know that I got a TRD supercharger along with bigger fuel injectors, fuel pump, and some other supporting modifications that are gonna go along with it for our 2017 LX570. I probably won't have time to mess with any of that for a while, but I did want to get a baseline. I looked around, I couldn't find any all-wheel drive dynos in town that had time to get me in so that I could get a baseline dyno. In the meantime, I came across a page on Facebook and an event this coming weekend for a company called Lonestar Yota Tuning. Looks like it's a young guy in Central Texas that does tuning on various Toyota platforms. Seems like it's the OTT Tunes. Probably with a VFTuner that he's doing would be my guess. I'll ask him this weekend when we meet up. But he's going to be in my part of town here in North Austin this weekend on Sunday. And I guess holding some sort of a meet and greet event there where people can come, get a quick tune, and get to meet him and ask questions and whatnot. So I said, okay, I'll pay the fee. It's a few $100. I'm just curious, see what the stock setup can do, right? That's really it. But I don't want to trust the butt dyno. I want some actual data. So I looked around and it looks like there's a handful of different apps available on the iPhone, just like there has been for years and years. They're probably on the Android too. I tried a few of them just to see which ones work well, don't work well. I found one called Perf Expert, and it has a lot of data entry points in there that seem, at least on paper, to make the data pretty accurate. It asks you for all the gear ratios, and it actually downloaded all of it pretty accurately itself based on the year and model of the vehicle. All the gear ratios, the weight in the car. It even asks you to enter the weight of yourself, any passengers that are in the vehicle riding, your gear, the amount of fuel you have on your gauge so that it can estimate the amount of weight for the fuel. What else did it ask for? The weather, the air pressure, humidity, all that stuff. It connects to the internet, grabs it real time. So all in all, out of all the different dyno applications that are available on the phone, just to estimate horsepower and torque, it seems like it's the most accurate. So I did a couple runs just to play around with it, and I'm going to walk you through it on this video. We're going to get a few baselines of what the power curve looks like on the torque and the horsepower, and try to find some baseline dynos that other people might have done. I found a couple. I'll show you what they look like, and once we're done with the Perf Expert dyno runs, do a few of those. I'm going to compare them to what the actual DynoJet numbers were that we've got printed out that other people did, and see what it looks like and how close it is in comparison. Then finally, this weekend when we get it tuned, we're going to do an after dyno with that Perf Expert app and see what the actual increase is. We're going to have some baseline data, and then we're going to see what the results are after the fact. So here's Overland Taylor Tuning. This is just off their website. This is for a bone stock Toyota Tundra 5.7. My guess is in two-wheel drive, because these are not all-wheel drive vehicles. They're four-wheel drive, so you can by default run them in two-wheel drive. That one's showing whatever that power was. It looks like 300.55 max power, 334.76 max torque. Here's another one by one of the members on I Hate Mud, who did a supercharged setup on his truck, and this was the baseline he had. Slightly different curve. You can tell they started at a different point in the RPM band. He's at 303.81 horsepower, 322.97 torque. So a little bit more horsepower, 3 more horsepower on the LX versus the Tundra, and about 12 less 12 less torque, 12 pound-feet less torque versus the Tundra. And it could just be the day, the humidity, the elevation, could be a lot of things, right? So take it with a grain of salt. But it gives us a good point of data to compare against so that we can see how realistic the dyno data is from the Perf Expert app. So let's get in the truck. I'm going to get it warmed up and drive around a little bit, make sure it's up to temperature, and then we'll play around with the app and see what sort of output we get. We got the truck started. I'm going to let it warm up. You can see it's cold. It's been sitting overnight, so I'm going to drive it around a little bit, around the block, get it up to temperature. All right, we are at normal operating temperature. I'm going to go find myself a nice, flat, uncrowded section of road. Pulled over here on the side of the road. I'm going to get the app set up. I'm going to do a screen record here, and I'll speak through it as we go. Almost forgot. Also, turn off your air conditioning. Hit the off button, however your interface looks. Turn off the air conditioning while you're doing these, because the air conditioning compressor will click on and off and on and off during different driving scenarios and depending on the temperature in your vehicle. So make sure that's off so that you're not causing additional power draw on the drivetrain. On the app here, I've already got my vehicle set up. I've done all the calibration, and I'm going to select the vehicle, make sure it's correct. Yep, that's right. And I don't want to do a timed run. I'm going to click on dyno. I only have one profile set up, stock, and once I get it tuned this weekend, I'll set up a different profile so we can keep all the data separate. So click on stock. By default, it wants me to start at around 2,000 RPM in second gear. So what I'm going to do is put my shifter in sport and then click down a couple of gears to put it in second. Continue. Passengers, weight. It's only me in the vehicle. Cargo, I don't really have much in here. I'm gonna guess maybe 25 kilograms worth of stuff. Tools and things in the back. You know, that's probably a little overestimating. Let's say 20 kilograms. My fuel is at 1/4 tank exactly right now. So we're gonna put that at 25%. I'm about 83.5 kilograms converted from pounds. So let's do 83.5. Okay. I think we're okay there. And that's the total car weight at the bottom that it's calculating. If you have a second passenger, just hit the add button. Allow you to add the second passenger and the third and so on. So we're gonna be right here. We'll hit continue. It's retrieving the weather information for my location. So it's saying it's 28 degrees Celsius, the air pressure, the humidity. If you want to enter it manually, you can just move that little slider bar over and it'll allow you to enter it manually. And you can also refresh it with that button at the bottom. We're going to hit start session. Let's read through this. Phone mounting. For accurate measurements, you have to secure your device inside your car. Mounting must allow your device to be perfectly still during measurement, submitted to minimum possible vibrations, align with car travel direction, and not tilted laterally, but it can be leaning forward from horizontal to vertical 90 degrees. See mounting examples for details. Okay, so my particular case, I don't have a mount for my phone in my vehicle. So I'm just gonna jerry-rig it. Basically put it on the center console lid and hold it firmly with my hand. So we'll see if that works or not, or if it gives us any problems. I may have to come up with a mounting solution to just tape it down or side. I don't know, but we'll try it like this first. Let's read this next message. Test road. To perform your test session in best conditions, choose a road, choose a closed track or road portion that is clear, flat, horizontal, straight. During tests, you must keep concentrated on your driving, never take your eyes off the road, and obey traffic laws of your county. Okay. Measurement. Each measurement must be initiated by following this procedure. Make sure your car is completely stopped. Make sure the car is aligned with the straight line you choose for the test session so that you're not turning onto the road when you start the session. That makes sense. Press the start button. It should display wait for 2 seconds and then display go. Once go appears, you can start the measurement when you're ready. So I guess once go appears, you can still be at a standstill, but then go as soon as you're ready. Nope, we don't want to watch a tutorial video, but we can read through this real quickly. Take off the car slowly in first gear, shift up to the selected gear, making sure you don't reach the dyno start speed yet. Wide open throttle from below the dyno start speed. Okay, so what that means to me is that we can start as soon as the dyno app tells us to start. We'll get through first gear, we'll get to second gear. We'll probably hit around 1800, 1900 RPM because it wants us to start at 2000 RPM. And then as soon as we're around 1800, 1900 RPM, then we're gonna go wide open throttle. That's step number 3, wide open throttle from below the dyno start speed to the rev limiter. Let the car slow down until Perf Expert displays the result. Okay, sounds good. So there's the start button. One of the issues I'm running into is the lack of a proper phone mount that keeps the phone at the same position throughout the run and from one run to the next. So I don't really need a phone mount in this car, but I'm gonna see if I can get one that will hold the phone solid enough to where we can do these runs that maybe I can remove later on. Hopefully I can get one within the next 24 to 48 hours so I can do some runs before this weekend. We'll see. So hang in there with me. I'm gonna order a mount, and the remainder of this video will be more testing. So hang in there, keep watching. Got it narrowed down to these 2 phone mounts. I didn't want anything terribly tall because I don't want the phone to shake around. I wanted it short, and I want it to sit in the cup holder with one of these mounts that firmly squeezes into the cup. I found the right cell phone mount. So in addition to the 2 I showed you just a minute ago, I ordered 6 other ones, a total of 8. And I tried various ones. I tried the ones that have adhesive, sit right here and have the little arm. Your phone goes on it either with a magnet or a cradle like that. I tried the one that goes behind the screen and mounts that way to kind of hold it up here. And I tried 4 different cup holder mounts, and then I think another little magnetic one that goes here. Anyway, as far as positioning and vibration, those are the only things I was looking at, because the cell phone has to stay upright, mostly upright and facing towards the forward, the forward direction of the vehicle, and it can't vibrate a whole lot and wiggle around and wobble, because the way the dyno apps work, they have to use the sensors inside the phone, and the sensors go a little wonky if the phone is moving and vibrating all over the place. So anyway, this is the best one out of the 8 I tried, and I tried to look at reviews and make sure I was getting some that had reviews around being solid, not vibrating, stuff like that. It's one of the cell phone mounts that fits into the cup holder, and let me show you how it fits in. Let me unscrew this guy. So it's got these little feet on the sides. You see 1, 2, 3, and when you turn that knob that I just turned, let me see if I can show you here on the video. You see the feet are going in, now the feet are coming out. And when they come out, they kind of press on the edges of the cup holder surround, and you want to get it nice and firm. You don't want to break anything, obviously, but get it nice and firm. There you go. Perfect. And then get this thing positioned where you want it, and it's pretty adjustable. So if I undo the set screw here on the side, this guy actually comes out and up. You can bring it all the way up. You can see that arm there. You can bring it up. You can rotate it towards you, down, whatever. I'm putting it all the way down and just leave it in that lower position. And that way, it's as low as possible with as little as possible length away from the mount, so that I have the smallest amount of vibration possible. I'm grabbing it with my hand and I'm moving it, so you can see it's moving a little bit, but just normal driving, it seems to be pretty stable. So now that we got that, I'm gonna stick my phone in here. This This is how it works. Hit these two buttons. And put your phone in there. The bottom just sits on this little cradle. And then squish these two until it holds your phone in place. And this way it's removable, it's not permanent. I don't really need a cup holder in this vehicle because I use the Apple CarPlay for the most part. If you want an Apple CarPlay integration, I'll link the video down in the description, and usually my phone just goes in this little slot for the storage thing. These are also awesome. I have another video with those. So anyway, let's get back to the dyno app. So check this out. I got all the data exported from the app on my phone and emailed it to myself as CSV files. Then I extracted just the estimated RPMs, horsepower, and torque, and put it all in there and made a little chart in Excel of all the different lines. You can tell it's pretty even across the board. Looks like peak torque is somewhere up there between 360, 375 to about 390 something. And peak horsepower is being measured at something around, what is that? 310-ish, give or take. But that gives us a good baseline, I think, of what the measurement's gonna look like. It's not perfect, but this is a good point of reference. So tomorrow, I'm gonna be going to do the tune, meet up with the gentleman that's gonna do that, and we'll report back. Keep watching. Excited, boys? They're not excited. Get a quick car wash. This poor car, it's our daily. It goes to the grocery store, Home Depot, everywhere, so it doesn't get a lot of exterior love. Drive-through car wash it is. Don't hate me.
It provides the battery to usually 12.7 to 13.3, 13 volts.
That way when it's not running, you're
Yes, that
uploading
way,
the tune.
you know, during the tune, we don't want it to dip at least below 12 volts, you know, in cause of torque scenario.
We're here with Lonestar Yota Tuning on the 2017 LX570. We're just going to do a tune on the stock setup before the supercharger goes on. You want to introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are?
So I'm Caleb Gordon. I own Lonestar Yota Tuning. I'm an authorized OTT Tune dealer here in I'm located in Waco. I serve Austin all the way down to Houston areas and everything in between. Just here doing a tune, the LX570. Pretty excited to see it. So
should be interesting. So there's a handful of different levels of tune that he was explaining to me. We're going to go ahead and put the spicy tune on here, see what it'll do on the factory setup. It's not going to be on here for very long since the supercharger is going to go on in a couple months. We'll do some before and after numbers so you guys can see what the actual real world effect is. And I'll give you the seat of the pants opinion too once this is all done and get some time driving it. Back at the house now, everything's good. I drove it around a bunch and I can tell a little bit of difference. Seat of the pants. Shifting pattern is a little more aggressive for what they call a spicy tune, quote unquote spicy. I expected more of an aggressive shift pattern and downshifts and everything. It's really not that different. Maybe it's because it's an LX570 versus maybe the Tundra or the Land Cruiser has a different shift pattern. I'm not sure. But I can tell there's a little bit of additional power in the mid-range. Top end, I don't think there's any additional power, but I don't know for sure. So let's go measure it. The data doesn't lie. Data is data. It's measuring certain things from certain sensors, and it should tell us exactly what's happening, or at least what it sees, right? So I'm real curious to see what the data says. Let's go for a drive. Back at the house, and I've got all the data uploaded, the data logs from those runs. I've got the before runs here on the left and the after runs here on the right. I got one graph up here at the top for the before, a graph here at the bottom, and I've got both of them scaled the same as far as the RPM range.
start to finish and the horsepower range so that they're both scaled identically so we can kind of see the difference. Now, there's just scrolling. You can see a slightly different shape in the power and torque curves. Not a tremendous amount of difference, but you can see a different shape. I'll get into the numbers here in a second. And over here, we've got the Overland Taylor tuning graph from their website. Again, this is for a Tundra. And I'm not really concerned about the numbers. Every dyno is going to read differently depending on what kind of dyno they use. They use the DynoJet, which is one of my favorite by far. I think that's going to be the most real world and accurate. Many years ago when I ran a shop, I had a DynoJet as well for several years. I love the way they work and how repeatable the results are. Can't lie with a DynoJet. It's the teller of the truth. Either way, they got a DynoJet. The other graph I had up here was from one of the gentlemen on the I Hate Mud forums. This was for a Land Cruiser, I think, or maybe it was an LX570, one or the other. And you've got the shape to the curve right there. So this is, that's your torque and then horsepower. And if you look here, torque up the top line and horsepower at the bottom. Slightly different shapes. It just depends on when they started the run. You can see on this one, they started at a little before 2,500 RPM. On this one, they started at 2,000 RPM. I have no idea what gear these were done in. The gear you do it in is obviously important as well as far as how the power is measured. Again, what I'm really looking at is the shape of the curve and the before and after and where the gains were based on what OTT is saying, because this is the tune from Overland Taylor Tuning that the local gentleman put on my LX570. So the tune is actually from OTT. It's just a pre-canned tune. There's no dyno tuning in person or anything. This is just a tune that they provide and they've done. They think it's safe, and they have several different people around the country that aren't necessarily quote-unquote tuners by trade. They just know how to flash the ECU with the tooling that OTT gives them. See here from the OTT graph is that you've got some torque gains at the lower end all the way up to about, what is that, 4,200 RPM, give or take, is where the majority of the difference is, maybe even 4,000 RPM. And then after that, you got a little bit of gain, but the difference is far less. And then this is horsepower. Again, you've got more gains up to about 4,000 RPM, maybe 4,200. And then there's small gains that are still there and measurable, but they're quite a bit less. On my graphs here, I got a whole bunch of different runs. This is not a real dyno, it's a virtual dyno, so take it with a grain of salt. But the settings and the parameters on the app and what I had in the vehicle, as far as weight goes and the amount of fuel I had in the vehicle, was the same before and after. And I made sure to keep things as consistent as possible I could so that there's as few changes as possible between the before runs and the after runs, so we had consistent data. I'm not too concerned about the actual numbers, the horsepower, the torque numbers, so ignore those for a minute. What I'm really looking at and looking for on the data is the change, the amount of change, and where in the power band that change is. This is the before numbers, this is stock, and at the top, I try to draw these red lines at the different intervals. I had 4 different intervals that are relevant and important in the middle of the power band: 2,800 RPM, 3,300 RPM, 3,800 RPM, and 4,300 RPM. That's just happens to be where the markers ended up with the scaling the way it is on the chart. And I did the same for the after chart, and this is not done by any sort of algorithm or calculation. What I did is literally just took the lines, the variety of different runs I had, and tried to pick the median, scrolled my mouse over it, and tried to grab the point that was at that spot and recorded the number approximately here at the top. So at that RPM, that amount of torque, that amount of horsepower. Pretty straightforward. No rocket science or magic here, just observation and repeatable data and then taking the average of what that repeated data looks like. And then if you look at the overall shape of the curves, so that's your torque up there, and that's the horsepower. You can tell the torque comes on right at the beginning. This is 2300 RPM, that first line. It comes on right at the beginning and it pretty much plateaus, and right around 3500 RPM is where it starts to dip. And the power is just mostly a straight line up from beginning to end. It has a little bit of a curve to it, but it's essentially a straight line. And let me tell you why I'm telling you to focus on the curve. The after graph, you can tell the torque comes in really strong at the beginning, noticeably higher, and it takes a slight dip throughout the entire power band. So it comes on and it pegs right around 2500 RPM. What is that, 25? Yeah, right around 2500 RPM is where it peaks, 2600. And after that, it's just on a downward trend. And then the power, it's not as much of a straight line as the before. It actually comes on, and you can see there's a little bit more of a hump there in the curve, and then it starts to plateau there towards the end. Not quite plateauing, it's still going up, but there is more of a pronounced increase right here as far as just the shape of the curve, not the number. And if we look at the OTT Tune and their dyno, you can kind of see sort of the same thing. The before torque, it's pretty much a straight line up until, what is that, 4300? On ours, I was saying it's around 4200. So it's pretty much the same here. You got a plateau of torque and then it starts tapering off. And then the increase, you've got an increased amount of torque, and then right around that 4200 RPM, it starts becoming closer, but more importantly, you have that decrease in torque that starts way earlier in comparison to the plateau we've got in the stock tune. The decrease starts sooner, and you've got that longer decline. And then in the power curve, same thing. You've got mostly a straight line upwards with the stock tune, and then with the OTT tune, you can tell there's starting at about the same point, but there's a little bit of an upward curve there, and then it starts to come in right about there. So that's what I want to see in consistency, right? In my data versus their data, even though they're doing it on a dyno jet, a physical dyno machine, I'm just using a silly phone app. What I want to see is what the trend in the data looks like. Now, let's look at the differences. I really didn't think there would be much in the way of power gain on a stock tune. I'm kind of surprised how much power there was that was added both in terms of torque and horsepower. So let's look at the different markers. At 2800 RPM, 2800 RPM, we were, according to this app, so again, take the numbers with a grain of salt, it was 365 foot-pounds of torque and 193 horsepower by my estimates as far as where the average was. So 365, 193, and we were right around 400 and 210. So that's about 35 foot-pounds of torque added, and what is that, about 17 horsepower added. That's considerable, even if you're looking at it just purely as a percentage and not necessarily the numbers. That's a decent amount of gain. Now let's look at the next interval, 3300 RPM. On the stock setup, pre-tune, we were at 373 foot-pounds of torque. Did I write pound-feet? That's foot-pounds. Whoops. Yeah, my bad. Sorry, not pound-feet, foot-pounds. Anyway, 3300 RPM. We're at 373 and 232. So remember that, 373 and 232. And on the OTT tune, we're at 395 and 248. So that's a give or take about 20 foot-pounds increase in torque. And what was that on the horsepower? 232 to 248. call it 15, 16 horsepower edition. Not a tremendous amount, but honestly, more than I thought there would be. And at 3,800 RPM, we're at 360 foot-pounds and 250 horsepower. Is it 250? No, 260, sorry. 360 foot-pounds and 260 horsepower. 360, 260. And where are we here? We're at 380, 272. So that's 20 foot-pounds increase in torque and 12 increase in horsepower. And finally, the last interval I've got here is at 4,300 RPM, and we're at 342 and 285. And down here, we're at 365 and 298. So 342 to 265, that's 23 foot-pounds increase in torque. And that's right before you have that kind of drop off. Then on the horsepower, we're at 285 versus 298. So that's about 13 horsepower increase. I'm sorry for all the data if this is boring you guys. I'm just one of those trust but verify folks that loves data and looking at it and analyzing it and seeing what the reality is instead of just listening to advertising. To be honest, if it wasn't for making this video for you guys, I would have never gotten this OTT Tune. It's more just curiosity and providing some data for the community. For those of y'all wondering what it cost for Lonestar Yota Tuning to do the flash, it took him maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I think 10 minutes. And the charge at the little gathering that he had was 450 bucks. So 450 bucks, got that paid to him, had a good chat with the guy, hear about what he does and how he does it and everything. And again, I personally wouldn't have paid 450 bucks. It was just for me to get this done. This was really more for you guys to get you some data and real world before and after on what these tunes do. While driving around, unless you're really paying attention, you can't tell. It's not a night and day difference. As you can tell, it's just, you know, somewhere between 10 to 20 horsepower and torque difference, depending on where you are in the power band. If you're really paying attention and you drove the car and you got familiar with it before and then drove it after for a little while, you can tell the difference. I can tell the difference because I'm used to the way the LX570 drives and where the power comes on and where it dies off. I can tell the difference myself. Would it really change how you drive on a regular daily basis? No, probably not. Is it going to be life-changing? No, probably not. Is it fun to play with, get a new tune and feel like you're got a new lease on the car and it's fun for a little while till you get to the next mod? Yeah, probably. Is it worth 450 bucks? It's up to you to decide. In the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, you found it helpful, and you got some data that's valuable for you in making a decision on whether you want to tune your Land Cruiser, your 200 series Land Cruiser, or your LX570. And for you guys asking what years this is capable on, as long as your tuner is using a VFTuner or an OV tune, same thing, you can tune any of the 200 series Land Cruisers or the 5.7 Tundras. That's from 2008 all the way to 2021. So the VFTuner supports all of those, no matter what you hear or what your online research does. I can confirm for you that it definitely does work, and the 08 through 2015 and the 16 through 2021 Land Cruiser and LX570s are all tunable with the VFTuner. That includes tuning all of the timing maps, the fueling maps, the torque converter lockup, the shift points in the transmission, essentially everything in the drivetrain for a full tune. It is capable of doing a custom tune as well. If you do a supercharger with bigger injectors, all that good stuff, VFTuner can handle all of the tuning as long as your tuner is familiar with it, whoever is doing the tuning on your vehicle, or if you're doing it yourself and you're familiar with how that stuff works. Outside of that, if you guys have any questions, drop them down in the comments below. I'm always happy to help. If you've got any curiosities, some input, maybe something that you experienced differently, I would love to hear your feedback as well. In the meantime, it's late. I got to wrap it up for the evening. I love you guys. God bless you. I'll see you next time.